There's a feeling that shows up somewhere around week 3 or 4 of being a parent. It doesn't have a name yet, so most people don't talk about it. It's not postpartum depression. It's not anxiety in the clinical sense. It's something quieter and more specific than that. It's the feeling of doing everything right and still not knowing if it's enough. You're feeding on schedule. You're tracking sleep. You're at every appointment. You bought the things people said to buy. And yet there's this low hum of uncertainty that doesn't go away. This sense that the most important thing is also the most invisible thing, and nobody gave you a map for it. That feeling is real, and it's pointing at something real. Because it turns out that what shapes a baby's brain development most isn't the big obvious things. It's the small daily ones, the ones that don't look like decisions. The ones that happen in the background of ordinary life, dozens of times a day, without anyone realizing they matter. This video is about 6 of those things. 6 patterns that show up in normal households, with caring and attentive parents every single day. Not because those parents are doing something wrong, because this information doesn't travel the way it should. By the time you finish watching, that hum of uncertainty is going to feel different. Not louder, clearer. There's one thing on this list, the 4th one, that tends to stop parents completely. Most people have never thought about it this way. It's worth staying for. You already know your baby needs you. What you're about to understand is exactly how. The first thing is distracted presence, not absence. Presence that looks real from the outside, but isn't fully there on the inside. This is the hardest one to talk about because it describes almost every parent alive right now, including the good ones. You're in the room, you're physically there, but your phone is in your hand, or your mind is running through tomorrow's list, or the television is on in the background, and your eyes drift toward it while your baby makes sounds on the mat in front of you. It feels like nothing. It feels like a normal moment. But inside your baby's brain, something specific is happening, or not happening, depending on whether you're actually with them. Researchers at Harvard Center on the Developing Child have spent years studying what they call serve and return interactions. The name describes exactly what it is. Your baby makes a sound, a gesture, a facial expression. That's the serve. You notice it and respond. That's the return. And that loop, that tiny back and forth, is the primary mechanism through which neural connections form in the first year of life. When the loop gets interrupted repeatedly, those pathways don't build the same way. Not because you weren't there, because you weren't quite there. The baby's signal went out and came back slower, or came back to a phase that wasn't quite tracking them, or didn't come back at all because you were looking at something else. Babies don't need perfect attention every second, but they need enough real attention, often enough, that their nervous system learns a foundational thing. My signals matter. Someone receives them. The world responds to me. Distracted presence quietly teaches the opposite. The second thing is too much silence during wake windows. This one surprises people because silence feels peaceful, and peaceful feels good. But language development doesn't run on peaceful. It runs on input. A long-term study out of the University of Chicago, published in 2013, followed children from infancy into their preschool years and tracked what predicted vocabulary size at age 3. The answer wasn't the parent's education. It wasn't income. It was the number of words the child heard directed at them in the first years of life. Words in the background didn't count the same way. Words aimed at the baby, even when the baby couldn't respond, were what moved the needle. Narrating your day out loud feels strange at first. You're describing things to someone who gives you nothing back, but their brain is doing something with every word, building the architecture of language, mapping sounds to objects and actions, learning the rhythm and structure of how meaning works. And the window for that kind of early language wiring is time-limited in ways that matter. The silence doesn't feel costly because nothing dramatic happens when you're quiet. The cost accumulates over months in ways that only become visible later. That's what makes it so easy to miss. If this is the kind of content you want more of, subscribing takes 2 seconds and means you'll be here when the next one comes out. This research exists. More parents deserve to know it. The third thing is skipping eye contact during feeding. Feeding time already feels like bonding time, so this one tends to fly under the radar. You're holding your baby, they're calm. The moment feels connected, but the eyes are somewhere else, on the phone, on the ceiling, on nothing in particular. In 2017, researchers at the University of Cambridge published a study on what happens neurologically when a caregiver and infant make mutual eye contact. Their brain waves synchronize. The infant's neural oscillations align with the caregiver's. That synchronization is directly associated with stronger social cognition and emotional attunement as the child develops. Feeding happens 6 to 8 times a day in the early months. Each one of those is a window for that synchronization to occur. The baby is learning what it feels like when another person looks at you and stays, what attention feels like when it's real, what it means to be seen. These aren't abstract things. They're building blocks for how your child will eventually relate to other people, to themselves, and to the world. The fourth thing is the one most parents haven't heard this way, and it's this. Jumping in too fast when your baby is frustrated. Your baby is reaching for something just out of grasp, or struggling to get a toy to do what they want, or stuck in a mild moment of effort and resistance. And your instinct is to fix it. Move the toy closer. Hand them the thing. Solve the problem before the feeling gets any bigger. That instinct comes from love. It also, according to a growing body of research, removes something the brain was about to use. The concept is called productive struggle. Brief, manageable frustration, the kind that's challenging but not distressing, activates the prefrontal cortex and builds what researchers call frustration tolerance. That capacity is one of the earliest predictors of executive function, the ability to regulate emotion, stay with a difficult task, and persist through resistance. Dr. Alison Gopnik at UC Berkeley, whose work on early childhood cognition is some of the most referenced in the field, describes the struggle itself as information. The baby's brain learns something when it works through a hard moment that it simply cannot learn when the hard moment is removed before it begins. This isn't about letting your baby cry without comfort. It's about 2 seconds. It's about watching before intervening, letting them try before you help. The pause before the fix is doing neurological work that the fix itself can't do. The fifth thing is inconsistent sleep timing, not imperfect sleep. Not fewer hours than ideal. Specifically, inconsistency in when sleep happens and how the transition into sleep is structured. During sleep, an infant's brain consolidates everything it absorbed during the day: language patterns, sensory experiences, emotional information, early memory traces. All of it gets processed and stored during sleep cycles. A study from the Max Planck Institute for Human Cognitive and Brain Sciences found that infants with more consistent sleep timing showed measurably stronger memory consolidation and faster language development in follow-up assessments. What disrupts that process isn't always short sleep. It's unpredictable sleep. When the timing shifts significantly from day to day, the brain's ability to settle into the deeper stages where consolidation happens is compromised. The hours might be similar. The cognitive yield isn't. This is an area where parents carry a lot of guilt, and that guilt is often misdirected. Perfect schedules aren't realistic. Consistent ones don't have to be perfect. The brain needs a predictable enough window to do its work. That's a much more achievable bar than perfection. The sixth thing is moving to fix your baby's emotions before acknowledging them. When your baby is upset, the instinct is to change the state as fast as possible. A new sound, a new toy, a change of position, something to interrupt the feeling and replace it with something easier. That feels like responsiveness. It feels like care. But what the nervous system learns in that pattern is that difficult feelings need to stop, not that they're safe to have and will pass on their own. Dr. John Gottman's decades of research on emotion coaching consistently show that children whose caregivers acknowledge and name emotional states before redirecting them develop significantly stronger emotional regulation by early childhood. The brain learns to tolerate difficult feelings when those feelings are first met with recognition. When recognition is skipped and the feeling is just replaced, the brain doesn't build that tolerance the same way. You don't need the perfect words. You don't need to narrate every emotion like a therapist. You need a pause long enough to let your baby know that what they're feeling registered before you try to change it. That pause is the thing. It's doing work you can't see, but that shows up later in ways that matter enormously. If someone you know is in the early months of parenting, this is the kind of video worth sending to them, not as a warning, as something useful that most people never get told. That hum you felt at the beginning of this video, that quiet uncertainty about whether you're doing enough, it doesn't come from failure. It comes from caring about something that's hard to measure and easy to second guess. Here's what the research actually reflects back, i.e., the parents who worry about whether they're present enough are almost without exception the ones who are paying attention. The ones who are already in the room, already trying, already asking the question. The 6 things in this video aren't dramatic failures. They're small calibrations in moments you're already having. Putting the phone down a beat earlier, talking out loud during the quiet parts of the day, holding eye contact through a feeding, waiting 2 seconds before solving the frustration, keeping sleep, timing a little more consistent, pausing to acknowledge the feeling before you redirect it. None of this requires more hours than you have. None of it requires you to be a different kind of person. It just requires knowing where to put your attention in the moments you're already there for. Your baby's brain is building itself right now, out of ordinary moments, out of the times you look at them and stay, out of the sounds you make while you're doing something else, out of the small pauses before you fix things. You were already showing up. Now you know a little more about what showing up actually does. If this was useful, liking the video helps other parents find it, and subscribing means you'll be here when the next one lands. You've already done the harder part, which is caring enough to pay attention.